What do you picture when you hear the words big lap? Is it packing up your car and caravan to drive to the farthest corners of Australia? Maybe it's endless nights by fire pits in the most epic free camps. Well, when Paul and Missy imagined their big lap, they saw something a little different than most. Instead of springing for the traditional caravan option, they opted for life on the open water instead of life on the open road. Their mode of transport and accommodation option? A catamaran, of course. Paul and Missy, welcome.
Hi.
Hey Rose, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Now, you're currently on a big lap, but it looks a bit different to a previous big lap that you did in 2009. So what was that all about?
Yeah, this one's a lot drier. This is a land lap. In 2009, we sailed a catamaran around Australia with our boys and boat schooled our boys. Basically, we started in Port Stephens, north of Sydney, went up over the top and finished in Mandurah. An experience that was great fun. And we are going to do that again at some stage, but now we're basically doing a land lap. So we're in a caravan retracing our steps the opposite way at the moment.
Wow.
But at this stage, I think we'll be locked in WA for a while rather than being able to get all the way over.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what prompted the move to do this via catamaran rather than caravan in the first place? Have you got a background in sailing?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, the sailing is my passion. I just drag the family along. The name Wendera, which is what our lap is short for Wendy and Darren. Wendy was my mum, Darren was Mrs. Dad, and they passed away within a month of each other in 2006. And that was the catalyst for the trip. We sort of said, you don't know what's around the corner, so let's do it. So we ended up building a catamaran and sailing it around Australia.
Wow. Now, Missy, was that a bit of a something that Paul had to convince you to do? Because obviously, if this is his passion, how did this conversation even come about? Hey, I want to travel around Australia in a catamaran.
No, it was pretty easy because of what happened with Dad and Mum. Mm-hmm. We just sort of went, oh, there was going to be a retirement dream. And then when that happened, we just went, yeah, no, we just don't know what's happening. Let's do it. It was a bit of a gulp moment because it meant I had to homeschool. Mm-hmm. It meant the boys were out of school, but it was really the best experience for them because the life experience on the road, when you move to somewhere and you learn about the history or the geography or geology, it was school in itself. So that was really good. But yeah, there was also a time where I can remember people would come on board our boat and they would say to the boys, oh my God, you're so lucky you're doing this. And then they would go, my youngest, it took him a little while. And then he said, you know what, this was my dad's dream, but now it's our dream too. So that was really sweet. So then we went, yeah, this is okay.
So what happened with actually building the boat? How long did that take you?
18 months, 7,000 hours.
Not that you're counting.
Yeah, and a nearly broken body.
I'm not doing that again, Rose. Trust me, that was too hard.
But it was good because we had the boat we wanted. I knew it was safe. Like it was 100%. He put everything into it. So, and knowing the family was on it, it was great. Yeah, I loved it.
There's actually a picture right there of us sailing just off Lizard Island.
Lizard Island.
With the spinnaker up there, you can't see it, but anyway, we just realised it was in the back there. So there's bits of it in here.
Yeah, we brought her with us this time.
Oh, that's incredible. What does a trip on the water look like though? Because you know, a lot of us are constantly searching for free camps and things to do and 4-wheel drive tracks and all those kinds of things. So what does it look like when you're on the water?
Lots more option, but lots more dangers in terms of the weather is everything. You really have to be looking at that. You know, you can hunker down in a caravan somewhere and it can be blowing a hoolie and you're okay, but in a boat you've got to find shelter and whatever. So you just tended to, the weather drove your life. I can remember the first thing I would do would be check the weather in the morning when I woke up to get the 5 o'clock forecast from the bomb, to see what's happening. But our forecasting nowadays is pretty good. I mean, people would say, oh, you must have had some horrible, weather. I said, yes, but we just didn't go out in it. We just waited it out. And when you get up to places like the Kimberley, so north of where we are now in the boat, that was amazing. And in terms of free camp spots, pick your spot, there's just millions of them, more. And you just have to be a little bit of awareness, when it comes to the weather. And up here are the tides. Because,
but having said the weather drove us on the boat, I'm surprised how much the caravan weather still drives us, because you could be driving and the wind is blowing in your face and your fuel economy is just shot, and you just go, what am I doing this for? So that surprised me, that the weather is still a little bit of a factor in the caravanning, but not as earth-shattering.
Yeah, so there's a lot more freedoms with the boat. You're not constantly looking at a sign that says don't camp here. Anywhere that you're willing to drop an anchor, you're pretty well good to go. It's probably some of the other challenges is a bit harder. You've got to plan a little bit more to get water and food and fuel and stuff, because that's not quite as readily available, especially when you head north.
And you have to get in a dinghy to go and get it. So it's a little bit more of an adventure sometimes with crocodiles and stuff.
In fact, we were reminiscing here at Broome, because we came into Broome around about this time in 2009. And where we anchored with the tides, the boat was a speck in the distance, because when the tide goes out, it's going to be on the bottom. So we didn't want to dry the boat out. So we were looking at that.
9 meters out or something?
Oh, we would have been kilometers out, but you have 9 meters of vertical movement of tide. So you can imagine how far the water goes out. So, we were looking at that when we walked out to have a look at the Catalina wrecks.
And we're walking along going, this is all the tide that would go out and it'll all come back in again.
Wow, so, that's incredible. I suppose you never have to, I was going to say you never have to worry about the tides with a caravan, but I suppose it depends where you're camping, doesn't it?
We went to one place which was on the beach, and you were like, okay, where's the high tide mark? So it's like, you don't expect to do that in a caravan, but you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Where's the best place you ever dropped anchor? Where's the best place you stayed?
The best place is a place called Crocodile Creek, which is...
That sounds scary.
Everywhere in the Kimberley is scary. It's full of crocodiles. You just don't go in the water. But Crocodile Creek was amazing, because it's the only place we anchored, and when the tide went out, the anchor was higher than the boat. And we were in a pool. We're in a pool of water for the next 12 hours whilst the tide went out and came back in again.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
That's
and you climb up a ladder to get up to another waterfall, and then you climbed up more waterfalls. So you just had waterfall after waterfall, and it was just beautiful, absolutely gorgeous.
Now, sorry, no, you carry on.
I'd say that was so special just because of it highlighted the tides in the Kimberley, in that you had to, when you came into this place, we came in with 5 meters of water under the boat. When we anchored and the tide went out, where we'd come in was 2 meters out of the water. Wow. And there's some great pictures. We did a blog called Wendira's Travels, and that when we talk to people about it, I pull up the blog and I show them the picture of the boat in this pool at Crocodile Creek
with another boat next to us,
right next to us,
just nothing but water around us, and that's it, and then mud.
Yeah.
Wow. We'll have to get those pictures off you, because it'd be really interesting to show our audience those as well.
Yeah, sure.
We'll do.
Now, when you talk about traveling Australia on a boat, I get this picture of, you just being these sort of airy-fairy, water-loving people who don't necessarily go onto land. Like, but what does it look like? Do you still get to explore, national parks and beaches?
You're basically day hopping your way around. So you're just moving from anchorage to anchorage, getting in the dinghy, going ashore and exploring. So, in the Kimberley, we came up the rivers, got in the dinghy, went ashore, climbed up all of the waterfalls and around and explored in there.
Yeah, so you'd spend the whole day ashore and then you'd come home and be on the boat. So it depends. But if you were doing overnight passages or passages, then that day would be on the water. But when you were at anchor, you got off and you either were in the water snorkeling and looking at the fish and the coral bommies and things, or you're on the beach running around exploring or going further in.
Yeah, I think if we looked at that whole trip we did, we probably only had 4 or 5 overnight sails.
Right.
The rest of it was just day tripping. Some of them were longer days, up early and getting in as the sun went down. But places like the Gulf of Carpentaria, going across there, that's a 3-day trip. So you leave and 3 days later you get to the other side.
And then when you get to the other side, you got your sea legs. So you get off and you go to the toilet and you're like this, going to the toilet.
Wow.
So most of the rest of it was just day tripping. I mean, literally we would have only had 5 where we did overnight. So you can do Australia like that. And if you think about it, the boat is really just where you come back to sleep. To move between and where you come back to sleep, and you explore from the boat.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds to me, as a non-sailor, that sounds quite intimidating, heading out onto what I would imagine the open ocean for 3 days. Missy, did you have any sort of apprehension about that? And how did Paul help you through that?
I had huge apprehension. My first overnight sail, I knew was coming up and I was getting really worried. And I remember we were at a marina in Townsville and we're on the back, and every time this guy walked past us, he would go, "Oh, you're going up over the top, had the worst weather. We had waves over the top. It broke our hatches." And I'm just going, I'm looking at Paul going, what are we doing? This will be my overnight passage. And he goes, "When he walks past, go downstairs. You don't need to do that. We are going to do it in good weather. Trust me, it's fine." And so the first overnight sail, we headed out. It was just beautiful evening. The sun was going down. The water was calm. We even had a spinnaker up, and he left me on spinnaker watch. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous. So, and the night seems brighter. The stars seem brighter. You actually see things that you don't see during the day because it's really magical. But it was very daunting. And the first time I got it under my belt and I went, "Yes, I've done it," I knew I could do it again. But very daunting.
And I had a plan that, because the boys were the same, they hadn't done any sailing like that. So I just thought, the first time we do something for the first time, I'm going to make it as magical or as easy as it can be. Otherwise, I'm going to scare them off and they're going to want to get off at the next port. So, that was the plan. And we also did a lot of training and practicing of man overboard. So anyone on the boat could pick up someone if someone fell overboard. And you sort of had, plans of, this is what we're going to do if this happens. Fortunately, we never had to activate any of those. But
no. And the boys did the overnight watches with us. So I would do it with Tim, my eldest, and Paul would do it with Ben, our youngest. And so we always had an adult and a child on watch every 3 hours overnight.
3 hours, and then you'd go off for 3 hours. And again, look, it was pretty benign. We never had any real rough stuff, and that was because we planned it that way.
By design.
And I was joking with Miss when we had the spinnaker up. You don't sail at night with spinnakers unless you've got full crews, but it was so beautiful. I just went to
it was this first one. It was just beautiful.
And then I went to, and I said, I'm only joking. So we went up and we pulled down the spinnaker and just sailed normally. But that was Mrs.
It was so beautiful.
Mrs. Baptism.
Can you explain what that actually looks like for somebody who isn't a sailor? What does that mean in terms of
the spinnaker?
Sailing?
Is the big coloured sail at the front.
Mm-hmm.
That you see. Mrs. is going to pull up a picture here.
Oh, no, I'm just going to try and do a little. This is a little picture.
That's the picture that's behind on the wall. That's
gotcha.
So here, Miss, I'll just so I can show. So the blue coloured sail is the spinnaker. That's the only sail we've got up at the moment in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
You generally don't sail with that at night because the wind can change quickly at night, and that's a big sail that can get out of control and things can get a bit hairy. So you normally just have the main and the headsail, which are not up in that picture. But the spinnaker makes you go faster and is great when the wind is behind you.
Wow. Okay, that looks like an amazing picture at night with it all sort of nice and calm, and I bet that was amazing.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
So let's look at your lap now. What are the main differences? Obviously, you know, you're not on water, you're on land, but are there any sort of key differences you see now versus when you did it before?
No, boys.
Is that positive or a negative?
No, it's good. It's good.
No, we loved having them, but yeah, this is our time now.
Yeah, they're 25, 23, so, you know, they've got their own lives to live now. So, yeah.
More expensive fuel.
Yeah, it's more expensive. I mean, it's more expensive in the running costs. The outlay's less. I mean, the boat was a large expense. The car and the caravan don't cost as much as the boat, obviously, but yeah, and in some ways, there's more unknowns with it at the moment because you don't know what's going on, and with the amount of people that are out there, you're not sure you're going to be able to get into places. That's probably one difference. With the boat, you just decided and went, and
you could drop a pick anywhere.
You could drop the anchor anywhere. You know, this is there was a lot more freedom on the boat, so we're limited to you know, roads here. I mean, we have an off-road caravan, but it's only so off-road, you know, you can't bush bash or you're going to break your house.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about the fact that you're currently in Broome, and so many travelers are over in Western Australia and Broome at the minute. We always talk about it's such, you know, having a big lap is so good because you get to be spontaneous and choose where you want to go. Have you found that, because you were just, you know, talking about you're a bit more limited, have you found that you have to book places in advance now?
Here, yes, because it was just, we had heard, I mean, and we're coming out of the season now. But pretty well, we had, Miss had booked our travel to the nth degree before we'd even left Perth.
For the first 5.5 weeks.
For the first 5.5 weeks. And we had a plan to be back in Perth and be in the Whitsundays right now on a catamaran.
Wow.
For Mrs. Brother's 60th, but COVID put paid to that. So now we're
trying to be more fluid now and trying to go with the flow, but that's really hard because I'm a planner.
Yeah, Miss likes to have it locked down. So this next few months we're going to, you know, suck it and see, so to speak, and do a bit more.
We're trying to do the planning where you write it in sand at low tide. Means that it could just come up and change. So we're trying to go with that philosophy.
Yeah.
But you still have to do more research with a caravan because you need to know where the dump points, where the water is. Well, we did on the boat.
Yeah.
But it just seems you have to plan it a little bit more in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. It's in around the centres or the hot spots, you know, like Carragini, Broome, Exmouth, you had to book.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get in there. But we found some of our best places were free camps where we were the only people there.
Yeah.
And we've still had a couple of those even in the middle of this peak. So that's opened our eyes a bit that they're there. You just got to go looking.
Yep.
Now, obviously, with the boat, you weren't able to go inland. It was sort of just, you know, around the coast. Have you got any plans to sort of do the Territory or down the centre of Australia?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Ullaru's on my bucket list to see, because having flown over it and it's such an iconic site of Australia, I really think as an Australian I should see it. But yeah,
we want to basically go through the middle and up the east coast, but at the moment we're sort of twiddling our thumbs a little bit, and we're a little bit gun shy with this extra time that we had, given that we weren't back in Perth by the end of August. We thought about going into the NT, down through South Australia, back for Christmas, but we've run the risk of going in there and not being able to come back. So we've decided we're just going to stick to WA at this stage.
It's Wendira's WA lap. At the moment. But it depends. Plans to go further.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know what, like being in WA, there is so much to see and so much to do. And, you know, it's probably not a bad state to be stuck in, is it?
No,
but that's actually opened my eyes, because, you know, we always thought, not always thought, but, you know, you always look at, you know, Queensland and all the other places, and you don't realise how much you've got in your own backyard. And even the smallest, you know, just little country mining towns and, you know, inland salt lakes, and we have so much and so diverse. It's really lovely. So it's good to be exploring it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to talk about your must-haves. So, is there anything that you travel with and you couldn't travel without? And did it change from the boat versus your land lap? I feel like there's a story coming here.
There's a story there, yeah. So look, one thing, we didn't have a coffee machine on the boat. I didn't actually drink coffee.
No, you didn't drink coffee.
Because I was in the Air Force for 25 years and I didn't drink coffee, which is quite strange. But I started drinking coffee on the boat, but now I'm a bit of a coffee snob and I like my coffee machine. So the van has to have a coffee machine.
Whereas on the boat, he only had Insta.
Yeah, so, and now the important thing for the coffee machine when we go off-grid is power. So Miss will tell you. He
has a Victron power management app. So first thing in the morning, someone else would reach over and get their phone and check their messages or social. No, my husband reaches over, get his phones and gets this power app and looks at it and goes, oh, wow, look at that power going into those solar panels.
And
look at that batteries.
Is this specifically so you can have a coffee?
No. It helps. It helps. But basically, one of the things you learn on the boat, and it flows into here, is that things are consumable. And if you run out of them and you can't get them, then you see, water, power on a boat, the big one, and power in the van is the same. So I'm very conscious of that. And the kids and Miss used to call me the power Nazi, the water Nazi, the food Nazi, the biscuit Nazi, because I would say, you can't have that. You've got to save that, or that's too much. Too long a shower. So yeah, now it's the technology is a little bit better now, and I can see on an app on my phone what's happening with the power.
Yeah, so I'm sitting out looking at this beautiful vista, and Paul's got his phone going, oh, I could look at this all day.
220 watts.
Paul, I don't think you're alone there. I think many people are in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
Boat, so to speak.
Yeah, mind the pun. Now, do you miss having your boat or being able to sort of get out on the water? And do you get out when you can?
When I was back in Perth, I was sailing on smaller boats and racing them. Yes, definitely miss the boat and sailing. And we will get another boat and do other parts of Australia again. But at the moment, the van is it. We caught up with some friends just south of here or down towards Port Hedland, who we actually sailed around Australia with. We met them in the sailing, and they had two boys as well, and they sort of we grew up sailing with them. We saw them in their boat and went out on the boat, and I said to Miss, we have to do this again. So they were apologising. Or
no, I was going, oh my God, I've just got him through the withdrawal phase and got him into the land thing, and then he goes out onto this boat and goes, oh, we've got to do this again. I'm like, just not now. So
that'll be another step. We will go back to that. I'm not building it again, though. That's got knobs on it.
It's funny you mentioned the social side of doing a big laugh, because a lot of us, when we sort of are in these caravan parks or free camps, we do sort of bump into this person or that person and have a quick chat. But I imagine you can't really do that when you're on a boat, right?
It is.
It's
so social.
You are on a different boat for sundowners every night, typically.
Wow.
I can remember coming into Lindeman, was it? Lizard Island. And we anchored, and as soon as we anchored, someone came over and said, sundowners on the beach at 5:00. And basically that was virtually every location after that. Someone would be on the beach and everyone would go in, and you'd watch the sun go down on the beach, and then you go back to your boat. And then if you got a group of people together that you were traveling with, then you would just go from boat to boat to boat, and you would have sundowners there. So it was very social. Very social.
And when we were traveling up the East Coast, there was a Darwin to Indonesia rally that was setting off in July. So a lot of boats were traveling up. So there were points where there was 10, 20 boats all sailing in the same direction and coming to the same anchorages. So you got to know a lot of them on the radio, because just like Channel 40 on the road, everyone's on the radio. And so you can hear people chatting and talking and sometimes chatting.
And the same there, sundowners there and sundowners when you're talking to people in the caravan park, everyone is relaying stories of where you've gone, where you're going to go, recommendations. More in the caravan park, it's more, oh, what about this road? Is there corrugations on there? Can we get through? Whereas on the boat, it's, just locations.
Yeah. And a lot of the people were sailing around the world and had come into Australia to go up to then do this lap. So there were some people who'd come across the Pacific,
Wow.
And so their stories were amazing.
That really surprises me because, when I had this picture, I thought, you guys would just be traveling and sort of be this one single sort of entity traveling around Australia, because I suppose in my mind and a lot of our audience's mind, the big lap is getting in the caravan and doing that kind of thing. But this obviously whole other community who are just doing it a bit of a different way.
Yeah,
exactly.
And there would be a lot of people doing it now because they can. And it was
for the freedom of it too, really.
We shows you how small it is, though. We came into a bay in the Kimberley, north of here. There were 2 catamarans in there already. Some kids came past in a dinghy and said, there's going to be a potluck supper ashore at 6 o'clock. So we went in. When we got in there, we found that a number of the kids that were in there were in the distance education class that our kids were in.
So one of them was in exactly the same online class as my other son, or my second son, and so they were in the same. They actually had spoken to each other before they met each other.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting.
And they were heading north, we were heading south, and that's where we met this boat with this other kids. And then we headed south with that other boat. But at all times, we had 2 or 3 boats around us. When you got into the Kimberley, it was a bit more remote, so there was less people there. But up the East Coast, as I said, there'd be 20, 30 boats. So it is literally just like a caravan park.
Yeah.
But you need to get in your dinghy to go across to have a chat rather than just walk to the next site.
That sounds amazing. With the homeschooling that you just mentioned, was it a complete coincidence, or is there a homeschooling for boat kids out there?
No, that was a complete coincidence. I just think it's because they were a WA family. We were coming to WA, so we are registered with the WA side, which is the School of Isolated and Distance Education. So they were both in that, and it was just because we were WA, and so that was a hapstance. So, but I think it just shows the connection that we have with all the kids. They're all in a similar boat, and they talk about the similar experiences, what that they liked and didn't like. Because one of the things about the homeschooling or the boat schooling, or boat schooling for us, was how much freedom it allowed the kids, because they had a program that they had to follow, and he teaches them time management, because they had, if I do all of this in this time, then I can go off and I can be snorkeling out the back or swimming or exploring. Mm-hmm. So they were very focused. Their time management skills improved. So they were in, smash it out.
11 o'clock, they'd be finished
they're gone.
And out.
And I suppose that's a bit of an advantage as well, because unlike, when you're on the road, your kids can't really sit in the back of the caravan doing their work, can they? But if you're sailing, they can.
But sometimes passages, if they had to read a lot of stuff, putting their head down, they weren't very good with that. So if we had a long passage, they would not do school that day. And then when we were in an anchor, they would catch up. But again, if they're catching up meant that they're missing out on snorkeling, they were focused.
Were you guys ever worried that, you were just talking about the fact that you're doing work and sort of getting your head down when you've got that rocky motion going on? Paul, obviously you're a veteran sailor, so you probably weren't too worried about seasickness, but what about the rest of the family?
We all had a little burley session at one point or another.
I had mine at the beginning. No, everyone but Paul had ours on the East Coast. Paul waited until we were right near the end of it before he had his one. But my youngest wasn't a great fan of the passages, so he didn't like the really long passages. So I got him a little backpack and had all little snacks. So if you're eating when you're not feeling very well, so he had his own that no one was allowed to eat. But he sort of came to the realization that for him it was the destination, not the journey. Mm-hmm. So he liked getting to the places, and he could just be up in the front on the catamaran, on the trampoline with the air blowing, and he was okay. He was fine.
And once you get to where you're going. Typically, you can anchor up and the boat settles down and you can recover. I mean,
but we were on a catamaran, which is very stable anyway. So when we're going along on a passage, we could have a cup of coffee on the table and it wouldn't be moving. Sort of on a non-slip mat where it's that stable type thing.
But I mean, if I went sailing offshore now, I would be sick.
Really?
Yeah. I used to get airsick and I still get seasick if I haven't been out on the boat for a while. But once you've been on the boat for a while, you get your sea legs and you get used to it. But if I had to go down into an engine room that was smelling of diesel with my head down and the boat going like this, I'm going to get sick.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So you do something you love even though you get sick.
Yeah.
There's always a payoff, isn't there? There's always a consequence. Before we go, I just want to ask you about sort of how people would even get into doing a lap on the water, if it's even a possibility, because it sounds absolutely incredible. But for those with little to no experience of sailing, firstly, would you advise it? And secondly, is it possible?
I would advise going and doing some courses and some training and practicing. It isn't something I would say for a newbie, unlike say a caravan and car where you can just launch into it having never done it. No, you wouldn't do that, but you can learn. There are courses you can go and do, and what I would recommend if you did that is start small, and don't just blast off across the Pacific in a boat for the first time.
With your family.
With your family, yeah. But people will probably be limited a little bit because there's a large cost. So the sort of thing that I would be recommending people do is go and hire one, and spend a week on it and get an idea of, is this something I like? Because they might turn the corner and everyone's throwing up and go, no, we're not doing this, before blasting off to the large expense of getting a boat that is capable of doing it, because as I said, you spend a lot more money to have a boat that is safe to be able to do that. So look, it's not as easy to do as the land lap and the caravan and that, but it's not insurmountable. You can definitely do it. You've just got to work up to it, I suppose.
Excellent. All right, Paul and Missy, this has been really good to talk to you and a really good perspective on a different type of big lap. So thank you once again for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks.
See you, Rose.
I don't know about you, but a big lap on the water sounds absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I don't have the skills to do it, but tell us in the comments if this has inspired you to consider a water lap instead of a land lap. And as always, like, share and subscribe.